Well, now I want to take a look at one of the most intriguing documentaries of this year. It's also one of the most eagerly anticipated, especially if you like true crime. The documentary I'm talking about is called Hinckley. I Shot the President. And this has been put together by Australian director Neil McGregor. And this is a fascinating documentary because, of course, a lot of the times with true crime, you don't actually get to hear from the perpetrator. You might get to hear from victims, you'll get to hear from law enforcement, maybe psychologists and people like that. But it's very, very rare that you actually get that opportunity to hear from the perpetrator themselves. Now, of course, the perpetrator that we're talking about here is John Hinckley, who back in 1981 attempted to assassinate the then president of the United States of America, Ronald Reagan. And of course, there's been a lot said about why he did it over the years, from his infatuation with Jodie Foster, through to his love of the movie Taxi Driver. There was also things about John Lennon found on him at the time as well. But then you kind of don't hear much about it, especially not here in Australia anyway. But John Hinckley kind of lived a fascinating life even after the assassination because, first of all, he pled insanity during the trial, which caused a lot of angry people in America at the time. And there was a lot of people calling for an overhaul of the justice system because it was possible that he would be found innocent because of the fact that he pled insanity. Nowadays, John is trying to live a very, very different life. He's a free man and he's trying to live a different life. And I think that's what makes Hinckley, I Shot the President, such an interesting documentary because this has some very, very intimate interviews with Hinckley. These are not press grabs or things from news stations that he's done over the years. These are actual interviews where the director, Neil McGregor, has sat down with him and spoken to him. And you may have heard over the last few years when he's tried to do interviews about his music that he doesn't really want to talk about what happened back on that day in 1981. That's not the case with this documentary. He's very open about the lead up to it, what happened on the day, what's happened afterwards. This is what makes this documentary so intriguing because, of course, he's not somebody that wants to tell his story over and over. So to be able to hear his story told with this documentary is amazing because, like I said, you don't often get to hear the perpetrator in a case like this's side of the story in a public forum. So it's fascinating. It's also fascinating to, like I said, to follow the trial and what happened during that trial, and of course how it almost changed the entire justice system in America as well. It's also fascinating to hear about John as an artist as well, which the latter part of this documentary does and does it quite well. A lot of people always ask me when I see a documentary, is this a talking head documentary? No, this is not a talking head documentary. There is a lot of file footage. There is a lot of footage of what John Hinckley is doing today. There are interviews from people who were around at that time. It is a fascinating true crime documentary. So look, I'm actually going to give this one 4.5 out of 5. I think it is a really, really fascinating documentary. In fact, you know what? I'm actually going to, I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think that this documentary is fascinating enough to get a 4.5 out of 5. So, look, if you are into true crime documentaries, definitely check out Hinckley, I Shot the President. If you want to see where you can see it, go to www.hinckley.movie and you'll be able to find different ways to be able to see it right there. But look, I'm giving Hinckley, I Shot the President 4.5 out of 5. Hopefully we get to see more documentaries from Neil McGregor as well, because he's a fascinating documentary who really knows how to put together a good movie like this one.